Climate change is one of the most pressing issues of our time. Increasing temperatures, rising sea levels, and extreme weather events are growing ever more common. What can we do about climate change? Innovative business models for clean energy and climate adaptation are a big part of the solution. Plenty of entrepreneurs have great ideas on how they can make an impact. However, it can be challenging to find the investment to get their projects off the ground or to grow their businesses. That's where PFAN comes in. The Private Financing Advisory Network is a global network of climate and clean energy financing professionals, offering free business coaching and investment facilitation to projects and businesses in developing countries, bridging the gap between investors and developers. The PFAN journey begins with an entrepreneur submitting a project proposal, detailing their investment needs. We select high potential projects or businesses and map a pathway to investment. The next step, business coaching, is at the heart of PFAN. We appoint an expert consultant from our network to provide targeted and unbiased one-on-one advice to help entrepreneurs refine their business plans and financial models, something which plays a key role in attracting financing. Once entrepreneurs are ready, we introduce them to suitable investors and, if necessary, provide further support to help make the deal happen. PFAN is funded by our donors, enabling us to provide these services for free. If you're an entrepreneur developing a project or scaling up an existing business in clean energy or climate adaptation, a consultant who wants to share your expertise, or an investor looking to make an impact, we would love to hear from you. Let's work together in creating a cleaner, greener planet where businesses are part of the solution.
Good afternoon, all of you. Thank you for joining this webinar this afternoon. My name is Patrick Thimba. I am the country coordinator for PFAN here in Kenya. And just as a brief introduction to our organization, PFAN is a global network of climate and clean energy financing experts. We offer free business coaching and investment facilitation to entrepreneurs developing climate and clean energy projects in emerging markets and like in Kenya. Our goal is to build and to support businesses in developing their proposals for investors to come in and support them. This is mainly in terms of climate change mitigation and adaptation, because there's a lot of disconnect between project developers and financiers, specifically in climate projects, clean energy project markets. So PFAN is an organization which was formed in 2006, and is funded by donors. You see at the end of the presentation. So today, and it is housed in UNIDO in Vienna, with REAP, Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Partnership. And we operate in Africa, in three regions. We are in the East African region, where our coordinator is Wilfred Moria, who is joining us. He's with us. But today we are engaging with clean cooking cookstoves of Kenya, so that we can see how we can support them and ourselves to see how they can upscale their operations and the financing. So this afternoon, my law is just to welcome you. At the end, I'll give you some more information how to apply for our support. So now I can allow you, David, to proceed if you are ready. I mean, George, if David is ready, you can give us a small brief of CCAK. And after that, George, you can do your presentation and you can take your time because we need to know more about how to finance the clean cooking stoves of Kenya, because I believe that there's a very big potential. Yes, thank you.
No, just continue. I've just logged in. Sorry, I got into trouble with technology, but just continue. I will give my comments
Okay,
later.
okay. Now, as a brief, just a small, I can give you some profile or a track record of PFAN as at now. As I said earlier in my small introduction, PFAN advises low carbon and climate resilient businesses in developing countries, and we match projects to the appropriate private financing. Since 2008, the organization has achieved about 1.7 billion US dollars in raised investment, and this has received PFAN support. We have been able to generate energy up to 1,000 megawatts in clean energy. And we have about over 126 projects which have raised financing. And 17% of these projects that received PFAN support have been able to raise financing. And we have been able to mitigate 4 million metric tons of annual CO2 emission. And the projects which have overall, up to the end of the year or last year, managed to receive PFAN support are over 750. Basically, we operate in the globally, mainly in Africa, Asia, and a part of the Caribbean. As I said earlier, we are in the East African region. We have South African region and West African region. And these are the regions where we operate from in Africa. And so basically our proposal is based on two ways. We have a limited supply of investor-ready projects from our nation, our country. And then the financials on the other side, but there is a disconnect because of the barriers, bridging gaps, specifically because of the professionalism of the business plans or project proposals. So PFAN comes as a sort of a midwife on that deal. So we have oversupply of PR projects, and these projects lack financial and commercial skills. And then there is also the lack of professionalism in developing the proposals. But on the other side, the financiers look for projects which have, of course, viability, financial viability, and environmental benefit. So basically, our activities are that if any potential project developer would apply to our organization, PFAN, and then they will be supported to develop investor-led business plans for pitching. And we facilitate also the project to finance and matchmaking. And then at the end, we expect to build the project pipeline and for large-scale investment. The outcomes that are expected is that we'll be able to unlock a frontier market for climate technologies, we mitigate investor risk, build financial services and ecosystems, and also disseminate best practices and applications for scale. I can just mention here that we have partners that we work with. We have organizations like AECF, REACT, EEP, and many other funds which provide funding for projects based on different requirements. We have organizations we look for seed funding. There are some who do early proof of concept funding. And PFund is like the middle man there, because what we do is that we help, we generate support for project preparation, market creation, and even de-risking for sustained growth and scale up. We have organizations like Power Africa, RICP, RIP, where they are able to do feasibility and technical preparation. Our the final or the end desire is that all those projects will be, as they enter into our pipeline, will be provided with support to get the financiers and investors. And the stages are like we have, of course, different financing models, proposals, impact investment, and the private equity. We have a project selection criteria and scope. Most of our projects, the investment ask is about between 1 million to 50 million USD, but we have micro projects of less than 1 million. And the projects, the scope mainly is we can start with greenfield and scale up projects, and the first round of external financing. The project type that we are interested in or we engage in are clean energy, cooling, projects with adaptation and benefits, specifically like what we are doing today with the clean cook stoves, and because they are part of in adaptation and the mitigation criteria. We operate mainly on least developing countries and the middle income countries. So mainly the projects that we target, these are commercially viable projects that can demonstrate that they can contribute to a decrease in climate vulnerability and an increase in climate resilience. Mainly in agriculture, upstream and downstream, including agribusiness and processing, ecosystem services, forestry, urban development, health, energy and access to energy, waste and water, microfinance and insurance, tourism and adaptation products and services. And these are mainly the target sectors that we operate from. We have the journey is we have the way the process is that the stage one is for the project, for the developers to apply for the project. And then from there, we do the project development. And then after they qualify the coaching, we do investment facilitation. And because of time, I'll be able to share this presentation with the group so that you'll be able to understand more about the organization. And so basically, we have some success stories here in Africa, in South Africa, even here in Kenya. We have organized companies that we have supported in this region. You can also get that information from our website. And I have one project in Kenya which maybe you relate with. We have a solar project, Barefoot Power Limited, which has been supported. It's a company that supplies solar technology within the country. And so as we come to at the end, I will be able to give you some information how to apply for support.
So again, let me welcome you all to this webinar. So my name is George Maina. So I work with PFund, that is a private financial advisory network as an advisor. So, and I think as Patrick has spoken, he has laid out what PFund does, and we are very much encouraged on this journey also that we are starting out with CCAK. I'll be doing a presentation. Let me just share my screen. Just share my screen. Give me a minute. Start from the start. Share screen. Okay, share. So I hope everybody can see. So I think as I mentioned, and as Patrick explained what PFAN does. So for me, what I'll be covering will be mostly to deal with financing of clean cooking ventures. And in clean cooking, we all know the journey that's been there in terms of how it started. Mostly in terms of, we started from the 3-stone fire and also using charcoal in efficient cook stoves. The statistics, as you all know, that 80% of Kenyan households rely on solid fuels for their cooking needs. And this mostly has brought about household air pollution, which is attributed to around 21,000 deaths in Kenya per year. Given that the statistic as they show, majority of the Kenyan households rely on solid fuel. And if you look at also statistics on LPG and clean, and also on electric cooking, they are quite low at around 3%. 3.7 million use LPG and only 3% use electric cooking. So how do we move on from there? So the solution, as we've correctly and as you practitioners and stakeholders in the field have correctly identified, is in the use of the clean cooking solutions, and of which are cleaner, the fuels, reduce exposure to harmful smokes. And also we look at aspects of forest reduction in forest degradation, and also the time spent in cooking and also in collecting of fuel. Quite a number of solutions are there in the market. These are just a collection of some of the products currently out in the market, of which actually most of them are actually members of CCAK. From if you look at wood stoves, charcoal stoves, we look at the gasifiers. Then we go to briquettes for both the carbonized and uncarbonized briquettes. For biogas, we have the fixed donor and also the other more portable solutions of biogas. And also, if you look at ethanol stoves and also LPG. And finally, we look at electrical appliances. So for the electrical appliances, I think these have been gaining traction quite recently for both the induction cookers and also for the electric pressure cookers. So we now just will start digging into financing of the clean cooking ventures. So this image may not be so clear, but generally statistics being tracked in terms of the financing into the clean cooking sector. One figure puts it at 40 million was invested, was it in 2018 to 2019, against a target of 4 billion in terms of achieving the SDG 7 targets for clean cooking. To start off, I think we can just look at the scenarios that currently you as entrepreneurs and also as stakeholders in the sectors face. So maybe we look at scenario A of a cook stoves or either company wanting to set up its factory. So that statement, you can see that they're at version 9.0 of their product, which is usually the case in terms of you've done the pilots, you've iterated and also pivoted to achieve some level of product market fit. So at that point, you feel that you are certified in terms of the thermal efficiency, in terms of the emissions. Your product, you have achieved, be it tier 2 or tier 3 in terms of the emissions and also thermal efficiency and safety. So you are looking to raise around 1.5 million to set up a factory. Another scenario you'll be looking at, be it a briquette manufacturer. So you've just been shortlisted by KTDA to supply around 2,000 tons of briquettes in a month. you need a working capital finance of 150,000 to be able to supply this order, given that payments are usually done 60 days to 90 days after delivery. Scenario D also, maybe we'll be looking at still a briquette factory. You now have orders, you have existing customers, and you have these new orders that have come in. So you are looking to expand your factory to the tune of 1 million USD. Scenario E, here we look at be it an LPG company. So you're trying out a PEGO technology so you've developed an innovative metering technology, which is cloud-based, but you are looking for money to pilot. So maybe the cost of the whole pilot is around 100,000, and you only have 50,000 as your base capital. So you are looking to add up some additional financing of 50,000 for the pilot. So the above were just scenarios that entrepreneurs usually face when they are going to look for capital for various aspects. So these we can classify them into three. So they fall mostly under cash flow challenges. So we saw a scenario of the briquette company looking for money, mostly to finance inventory, be it the raw materials, also for raw materials, employees. So we are looking at scenario 2 for capital investments, the cost of setting up new plants and building, getting be it vehicles for distribution, and the third one, the lengthy product development cycles. So like for the gas company looking to do the proof of concept now to try out its new product. In any business, you also have to look at the business life cycle. So like a baby is born, so a business is born. So there's a point of launch. So at launch, actually you have no revenue. So usually call it pre-revenue. So once you go out, you test out your product, then we now come to growth, which you've tested out your product. You have some initial sales, you have some traction, and shakeout, and also maturity. So we now come to when you are now looking at the various ways, or I can put it the sources of capital, and also the type of capital that you need. So for a startup, mostly is a company that has no, usually a startup in your initial year, you have no revenue. Most of your processes are not defined. And in terms of also you are kind of trying to look at where best do you fit, who is my customer. You are trying also to perfect your product. So what type of capital do you look for? If you're looking at an aspect of the product development, you're looking to run pilots, you're looking to build prototypes. So what kind of financing is good for you at startup? So mostly there we are looking at grants and equity. So for venture, when you now get to the venture stage, you have some form of traction. You've mostly perfected on your product. You are looking now mostly, how now do I get the right people in place? I need to do some key hires. I need also now to invest in machinery. I need to invest in plant. I also need to invest in working capital for my business. So at this point, you have some level of, can I put it, credibility. You have kind of some insight into your cash flow. So the kind of financing mostly we are looking at there is we are looking at equity, grants, convertible debts, or subordinate debts. So at mature stage, maybe the business now has been growing. You've expanded into other regions. So if it be it the founders and the directors, if they've been relying so much on debt, in a way they are also looking for some exit as mostly now to capitalize what they put into the business. So at that point, mostly we'll be looking at debt or equity. So in terms of the forms of capital, mostly we look at the two common ones, mostly are equity and debts, but also we look at grants, mezzanine financing, of which it's usually a mix of both equity and debt. And in the renewable energy space, we also carbon finance for some years back played some role, although now with a decline in terms of the carbon pricing nowadays, but I may stand corrected. It's still there, but nowadays it plays a less significant role in renewable energy companies looking for financing. So sources of finance, the usual. The 3 Fs mostly refers to friends, family, and fools. We have angels, we have banks, we have grant-making organizations, the non-bank financial institutions, the venture capital funds, private equity funds. We are looking at also high net worth individuals, and also customer financing can also be a source of financing. Each kind of financing usually has its merits and demerits. If you look at both debt and equity, for a startup, usually where you don't have visibility on how much cash you're able to get month on month, equity is usually the best form of financing before you get that visibility. For a growth kind of business where the founders mostly are looking at an aspect of maintaining control, they are not looking to cede so much ownership in the company, and they have a credible cash flow. Mostly they can focus on debt. So if you look at the advantages and the disadvantages of each for equity financing, so you are looking at a reduced repayment burdens in the initial year, and a strong business can raise equity even in its early stage. So you've seen equity raise for what we refer to even at seed stage or even at concept stage. So for debt financing, mostly it's for companies which have a track record. So, and one of the main advantages is that in initial years after repayment, there's a reduced burden. So, and then a strong business can also raise capital through equity. I think there's some repetition in there. So for debt financing, mostly we look at 2 things. So either mostly secured or unsecured loan. In banks, mostly when you go to banks, they usually ask for collateral. That's for secured loans, which is usually 2 or 3 times of the amount. For unsecured loan, on the other hand, what the banks are usually looking at is your track record and your credit score. But mostly the amounts that you may get through unsecured loan usually fall much way lower than for secured loans. An emerging trend nowadays has been in terms of venture finance, of which we've seen quite a number of companies coming up to offer venture finance. So we can say venture finance is a form of finance provided to mostly startup companies or companies which we can refer to as at seed stage, which have not really validated their business model, or if they've validated their business model, they've not reached a point of scale. So venture finance mostly a group of investors to come together to pool resources and create a fund now to invest in companies in specific sectors of the economy. So we have venture companies, venture finance funds, mostly specializing in agriculture, in energy, in IT, and or in health, even in real estate. So the main difference, if we consider between venture finance and debt finance, so the venture finance company is mostly looking to maximize return with an exit. Mostly they usually say between 5 to 10 times the initial investment. The holding period for venture finance is between 2 to around 7 years. For debt finance, you can either have a short or long term. So the instruments or how the money you raise through venture finance will be through equity or be it in convertible bonds, debentures, or conditional loans. For debt finance, you are looking at an aspect of loan or factoring, leasing, asset finance. So for venture finance, mostly they take up shareholding, but at given times they may ask for collateral, but that's rare. In debt finance, mostly collateral is there. A venture finance company will mostly take up ownership of the company and even have representation to the board. For debt finance, they usually know representation on the board. So the impact on the balance sheet is that in debt finance, you usually increase your leverage in terms of the debt. So venture finance mostly is offered through equity. So there's reduced leverage on the balance sheet. Looking at maybe companies or players that are in the sector of venture finance. So PFAN, we can say in a way we do operate, but mostly we offer what we facilitate. We are more like a bridge. But other players we are looking at the KCV, Kenya Climate Ventures, Growfin, Acumen, AEP Africa. So for KCV, I know they've invested in right now 3 briquette companies and also cookstove companies, if I'm not mistaken. So also the same for AEP. Acumen, back in 2015, they did invest in some cookstove company, but I may stand corrected if they still have holding. But I know they do still invest in the clean cooking sector. Private equity, on the other hand, mostly invests in what you can call mature companies, but at times they may take some form of venture capital. So between the two, venture finance and private equity, the thing to consider is that they offer more than just capital. So you find that number one, they may offer financial and strategic information planning. They may help in recruitment of key personnel. They also helped in subsequent rounds of bank or debt financing. They can, through their networks, they can offer access to international markets and technology. In terms of marketing strategy, they also play key. And finally, they help in IPOs or private placement and raising additional equity rounds. On the other hand, we can also look at asset finance. So asset finance, we can look at it as using the assets that you are going to purchase as a form of collateral. You can either use it, so the first statement, as you can see there, you are looking at getting working capital basically from the assets of your business, but mostly asset finance, you look at it as using the assets that you are going to acquire to get as collateral for the loan that you are looking for. So mostly what I've found even on the Kenyan market is that in asset finance, the asset provides a part of the collateral. So if you are looking at a briquette machine, the lender will tell you that the machine will provide 60% of the collateral value, but at the end of the day, you may have to top up on the collateral to get the full, as in to reach the full amount that you are looking for. So topping up, maybe you may be asked to provide a land, maybe as a additional collateral for the amount you're looking for. So institutions offering asset finance in Kenya, maybe you can look at banks, be it Equity, Stanbic, Family, Cooperative, etc. We are looking at DFIs. So DFIs, mostly like here in Kenya, we'll be looking at Industrial Development Bank and ICDC. And for the DFIs, I think they were one of the first companies to offer clean cooking companies asset finance for equipment purchase. I know IDB, they have some arrangements with India in terms of if you are going to purchase equipment from India. I think also the same case applies with the ICDC. So we also have some non-bank financial institutions which are specifically offer, as in who offer asset finance as their key product. Then we can also look at some circles offering asset finance, but mostly towards vehicle purchase. Grants are another form of capital for your business, and mostly they are given by donors, governments, or organizations looking to do CSR. Most grants are made to a specific project or a specific sector. So when you're looking for those grants, you have to align to the theme or the call of whoever that is issuing the grants. So we can say grants mostly also fall under two, where we are looking at solicited and unsolicited grants. So for solicited grants is that most grant makers usually have what we call windows. So in windows, they usually issue a request for proposals, and then they give a timeline for which you can apply. For the other case for unsolicited grants is where a grant maker has rolling application and can accept grants on a rolling basis. So you can apply at any time of the year. So the other thing about grant is that they are industry specific. So if you are going out to look for grants, like for now, you're looking for grants in clean cooking. You may find a grant maker doing grants in electricity or in solar, but is not doing in cook stores. You may find a grant maker doing in health, but is not in energy. So you have also to look at what is the area of specialization for these grant makers. So and then for enterprises, you have to look at grant as catalytic funding to propel a venture towards the next stage and towards scale. Looking at also in terms of the categories of grants, when you are either looking at proof of concept, these ones they mostly look at an idea as a concept. So you apply that, you are saying that you're going to prove your idea is viable and it can be able to achieve the impact that the grant maker is looking, but you need funding to implement it. We also have grants in terms of feasibility funding. You have grants in terms of also marketing support and equipment support as some of the grants that are there. Most grants, I think in my case, the ones I've seen mostly, they range from around 5,000 USD and they max out at around 250,000 USD. So above 250,000 in most instances, if you're looking for commercial funding for grants, most of them will max out at around 100,000 to 250,000. Above 250,000 now, you now have to look for commercial source of funding. Looking at maybe these are just some of the highlights of organizations which have which usually give grants. Excuse me. So MEX, that's Modern Energy Cooking. They've been giving grants mostly geared towards nowadays. They are geared towards electric cooking, if I'm not mistaken. We have Nordic Climate Facility. Mostly, I think they've partnered with EEP, if I'm not also mistaken on that. So the Clean Cooking Alliance has done quite a number of grants over the years. I do remember Spark Fund as one of them. ACF does both grants, but nowadays it's more for like operating in terms of venture funds, venture financing, and also concessional financing. DeepRise has it's a challenge fund. I think it's capped at around 20,000 USD. So Power Africa nowadays is mostly centered towards the solar and electricity. KCIC in the initial phases had the proof of concept funding. I would have to check if that is still the case. Energy for Impact also has done quite a number of grant funding to organizations. Also, you look at EEP Africa. So there are quite a number of organizations also in this sector. So even if you look at there's GIZ, the SNV, so there are quite a number also in this sector doing the grant making. When you now come to the RBF, the results-based financing, this is another form of financing which has gained traction over the years. And currently, I think I can state that most of the grants, even which are offered, have some form of RBF, of which RBF financing is linked to pre-agreed and verified results. So you agree to a given course of action, and then you agree how with this, once you achieve given milestones, how will the results be verified? When you look at some of the two key aspects of that, in terms of performance-based financing and also results-based financing, some key aspects, these are more recent in terms of the financing that has been in place in the clean cooking sector. So RBF, I think one of the most recent one is COSAP. COSAP, I think, has a 500 million Kenyan shilling facility on the clean cooking sector. If my numbers are right. I think also we have for the Kakuma Collaborate Challenge Fund. It's an ongoing one. So COSAP currently is being managed by SNV, but SNV also have noted that they also have some other RBF financing they've been managing. So if GIZ has been running the NDEV program for quite a while, and currently a lot of the financing is actually implemented through the RBF methodology. So for carbon finance, I won't talk much about it, but carbon finance, we can say that it's mostly tied towards greenhouse emissions. So you are looking at proving that how your project or how your product has assisted in the reduction of emissions, and then also how now is that offset. So carbon finance mostly came about from the Kyoto Protocol, and which saw most developing nations agreeing to reduce greenhouse gases emission by capping carbon dioxide emission and other greenhouse warming gases. So in carbon finance, you look at the various standards from the gold standard, the UNFCCC clean development mechanism. We have the ACR and the verified carbon standards. So carbon finance also nowadays mostly what mostly is going on is mostly the voluntary carbon market, of which I think that's where most of the companies nowadays are working from. One of the interesting thing about I was reading on carbon finance is that I'm sure most of you know Tesla. So one of the biggest component actually of the revenue stream for Tesla has been other what we call internal combustion ICE. That is the normal vehicle using be it the gasoline, the diesel, or the petrol, paying Tesla to offset their carbon, as in their carbon emissions. So it has formed quite a big, a large revenue earner for Tesla. So in Kenya, I know there are quite a number also of companies which are clean cook stoves. I think not so many, be it around 4, which have benefited from carbon financing, and also some other projects in forestry and also in hydro, which have benefited from carbon financing. Another aspect which have emerged in terms of funding has been crowdfunding, of which crowdfunding is where you have an organization which acts as an avenue for people to pool resources to raise money for a company. So I think it has been a number of years, and right now is where it is really kicking off. Because if I can remember over the years, that is in my experience. I remember back when I was working for another organization, we worked with Kiva. Kiva is a crowdfunding source. So, but mostly their loans ranged from around was it $100 USD to around $1,000 USD. Energy for Impact back then, I think they were working with Kiva. So also we had Kickstarter but Kickstarter mostly I've not seen a number of cookstove projects. So I have seen like for cookstoves is Kiva, but if you look at Energize Africa, Crowdcube, that one has mostly worked with the solar companies. So I can show you some headlines in terms of the current crowdfunding. So if you look at the equity crowdfunding, I'm sure most of you are aware of Future Pumps. So currently they are crowdfunding on a platform called Crowdcube. They are looking for, their target was £300,000. So of which they have raised £611,000 as of now. That's a 2 or 3% subscription, oversubscription. That was on equity. So they were looking to raise 11%, to give out 11% of their share with a pre-money valuation of £4.6 million. If you go to debt crowdfunding, so for Energies Africa, they usually do, it's mostly a solar platform, of which like for here we can see Altec issuing a bond. They're looking to raise 750,000. So it's 54% raised which translates to £404,000. So we cannot finish on the aspect of financing without looking at consumer financing. So consumer financing is when a business offers to finance their customers with help from a financial company or bank. This allows for the consumer to pay for a good or service that they couldn't pay for upfront in cash. One of the big things that usually affects uptake of renewable energy solution is on the aspect of affordability. And consumer financing offers one of the key, offers a key aspect in helping translate. So maybe looking at the journey like of Clean Cook stores. I do remember that microfinance institutions really played a big part in the uptake of the Clean Cook stores. Also, we are looking at the circles and also the merry-go-rounds. Companies like I know banks like Equity. We have also KWFT. They did a lot of promotion of the, like for KWFT, they did a lot of promotion of the rocket stove. Equity, they've been carrying a lot of stoves. I know they've done Envirofit, they've done Burn. They have a product called Ecomoto as part of what is happening. So, but also you cannot also overlook the role of chamas, which have played in increasing uptake of both in all renewable energy solutions, from cook stoves also to solar, even to biogas products. So when you are looking at how to prepare to raise external capital, so what are the steps when you're preparing in terms to raise external capital? So number one, I think, as we say, is that you have to know your story. So nowadays, there's the aspect of what impact is your company out to make. So are you looking to solve a clean cooking? Are you looking to increase energy access? But at the end of the day, your story also has to connect to the investor. Yeah, your company needs to have a story to tell to the investor so that you can connect. Because as much as investors are seeking to get a return, they're also seeking to make impact. So then number two, documentation. So what are the key documents that you require? If you look at, so number one, maybe be it a business plan. You need to have a business plan. Then you may need a summary. You may need a pitch deck. But also, if you are going concern, audited accounts are a necessity. Tax compliance is another thing. In terms of also, you need to have profiles of your key management teams, financial model, projections, some of the things. So when you're looking at your team, when you are looking to raise capital, so one of the things that investors, no, let me put it, entrepreneurs fail on is that if you have a one-man show, as in you're an entrepreneur looking to raise, is a case, an example of 500,000 USD or $1 million USD. So when the investors come for due diligence, they find that number one, you operate all functions of your business, be it accounting, be it marketing. If you're looking at engineering, maybe it's still you as the key. So you have no co-management team that can back you up. Yeah. So that's also a critical thing to look at. Another aspect is to look at advisors. So what I usually tell entrepreneurs is that you don't have to look for expensive advisors. You can have a budget. If your business is a running concern, you can have a kind of a small budget, be it for your board members with knowledge, be they attorneys, be they accountants, with the technical know-how of the industry. Just a token of appreciation, because you'll find people in your sector who may be willing to give you advice. So you can depending on the stage of you that you are at, you can look at how much will it cost me, and in the end, it also tends to pay for you in terms of the advisory that you offer. Then you have to target. You have to be targeted in terms of the kind of investors that you are approaching. Investors approach are I think, as we spoke, they are sector specific, and they are also investors are stage specific. So if you're looking to raise, be it proof of concept funding from a private equity fund, so a PE fund mostly is looking for a mature company. So in that case, there's a mismatch. If you're looking to raise, if you are a mature company looking to go into a venture capital fund to raise funding, but be it this venture capital is looking for companies which have a higher upside. So they are not looking for companies which have been in operation for. So you have to identify what type of investor I'm looking for, what type of grant maker I'm looking for. Yeah, to have a match in terms of the target investor you're looking for. Practice your pitch. Yeah. When you go to an investor, you have to know your numbers. If you are asked in terms of what is your profitability, what is your burn rate if you are not yet profitable, and your pre-revenue, you just have your initial capital. You have to really have your numbers at your fingertip. One of the things I think I've seen is that if I may put it a case of when lawyers are going to court, they usually prep their witness or prepare their witness in terms of what kind of questions will you expect and how will you answer that question to their best satisfaction. So even you as an entrepreneur, it's good that you practice. So when the investor comes to your facility, you are not your accountant is not speaking this way, then also you as the founder are speaking in another way. Number 3, also competition. You have to know your competition. Be prepared also in terms of also what is your product, what is your value proposition, what is your competitive advantage. Yeah. I think as looking at, we come to the final slides. In any investment evaluation, be it you are looking for grants, be it you are looking for commercial capital, be it debt or equity, the investors or the grant makers usually have a scoring criteria against which your proposal is evaluated. So over the years, I think the clean cooking sector has really changed over the last decade. I think when I was starting out more than like a decade ago, there was a lot of grants going out into the clean cooking sectors. So, and mostly what the investors, the donors were looking at was looking at impact, but sustainability was not such a key factor. So over the years, nowadays, we find sustainability, impact plays a key factor. Sustainability actually has also taken really precedence in that. So in the evaluation criteria, the scoring will be from the aspect of number one, are you commercially viable? When you also now look at in terms of technical viability, is your products or your services, how are they? Do they have like what we refer to as product market fit? Your team, how experienced is your team to execute on the project or the proposal that you are putting forward? In terms of impact, gender also plays a key aspect nowadays. In terms of also you're looking at gender, how gender neutral or how gender positive is your business? Are you like what nowadays there's a word? Are you a Mandel? Yeah, only male representation, or are you diversified in terms of your gender representation of be it your board or your management team or your employees? The climate impact also plays a key role. And finally, growth potential, because you're looking for capital, be it from a venture fund whose key strategy is an exit at 10 times. 10 times. Then you're coming to say that in the next decade, we're only looking to grow 2 times. So there has to also to be a match on that. Finally, I think in the last slide, I can just maybe from look at common pitfalls when raising capital. So some of them I would say like not seeking professional advice. When you go to raise capital, you have to know like what type of investor you are looking for. What do the investors look for? What key documents? How do they need them structured? So at times you have to go the extra step and look for professional advice. And in most instances, you find that some investors or some organizations do offer this professional advice. As Patrick started by saying, here at PFAN, we do offer, before we get to the investment facilitation phase, we do our due diligence. Then we also do mentoring for the enterprises that we do support. If you look at organizations like Kenya Climate Innovation Center, they do also have an aspect of technical assistance. I think organizations also, I know Grofin also does that. EEP also in their approach, they do offer technical assistance if you're selected. The same with ACF. The second aspect in terms of the pitfall, I would say is also asking too early. So you're looking to raise debt or like around 2 equity financing, yeah? But you've not, number one, you've not perfected your product. You've not even, you don't have a team in place. And then, so you're asking too early of a given kind of financing that you are not prepared or that you are not fit for. Taking on partners depends also, this points to like taking on the right partners. You may take on the wrong partners who offer no long-term kind of long-term development for your business. Investors don't like surprises. So the minute you start bringing up issues during negotiations may not really tend well when you're raising capital. Having no plan for scaling. You need to be clear. Where is your business going to be 3 years down the line or 5 years down the line? So that when an investor is coming to put in their money, they know that this is the basic assumptions that we need to do. When you now come to being underprepared as a common pitfall when raising capital, I would say that number one, there are common documents that all over that an investor will request for you to have, be it your financial model or your business plan. If you are a going concern, we are looking at, I think one of the questions asked there is provide us with your 3 years audited accounts. You need to have your core team in place. And also you need to have your facts right. I've been in places where you're going to do due diligence, where you find that an entrepreneur has not done like pre-due diligence preparation. So you go sit down in the boardroom, and all the team, the founder is like the one managing the show. The team members are speaking in different terms. So you need to be prepared and also organized in terms of how you present yourself. When you now come to prioritizing product, the product is just part of the whole equation. So if you look at just that your whole value proposition just rests on that you have a superior product. The investors, be it the grant maker, be it the financial institution or bank, or the venture capital or the PE fund, they need to know that the product is also supported by the larger organization. What is how do you now grow? Because if you say that we have the best product in the market, but you have no, number one, you've not achieved product market fit. Number two, you have no strategy in terms of distribution or marketing. That's usually a pitfall. When you look at the applicable laws and licenses, if you are an LPG company, maybe you are looking at ERC certification. So do you go to an investor before you've been certified by ERC? That is in case for LPG, that's just an example. Another example would be looking at in terms of compliance, because one of the things investors also look at how compliance are you. When you ask for your tax compliance, do you start indicating that give us 3 weeks, or you go when you're ready? And finally, we look at also overvaluing or undervaluing the company. You have to know your price. Know what's the valuation of your company. If you are asking for like 10%, is it the right price? Because the investors will do their due diligence and affix a price. So if you are way overvalued, that's usually they may usually end up passing on the deal because number one, they'll see that there's no upside to the investment. But also for you as an investor, if you undervalue your company, you may end up not getting the full value, and also you may end up not giving the right, because you also, when you're going out to look for money, you also have investors already in the company. So you may end up not realizing the real value of your company. So I think the final thing I did not mention is asking too much or asking too little. So you may raise capital, you ask way too little. So you may have overlooked like how much you need to grow. Yeah. So you ask for $1 million or 500,000 USD, but in actual sense you need $1 million. Yeah. So when you now you burn out now the 500,000, you have to go back to the investors requesting for additional financing. Another aspect is that when you ask for too much money, of which this is money that needs to be repaid. Yeah, I think for my part, that's all. Yeah, you can now have the Q&As.
Thank you so much, George. I don't know who is good. Do you have the questions with you? Then you can respond briefly, because we may have to send them to the questionnaires.
Okay, yeah, I can see there's a number of questions that are on the. You can please type your questions on the chat. So the first one I can see is from Danson. So Danson, what informs the bankability of a project? I have severally tried to apply to support my briquettes project asset upgrade, but not yet successful. So one of the things I think, Danson, maybe I don't know the nature of the briquette company you are running. I would ask, is it carbonized or non-carbonized briquette? Because unfortunately nowadays, when you go to apply for funding for non-carbonized, that's the equivalent of charcoal. Impact investors will usually ask you what is the source of your charcoal, as in of your feedstock. If you are mostly relying on charcoal dust, sustainability now becomes a key aspect. Then number two, another aspect I can say is that if you're looking for debt investment, I think the 5 C's of credit will apply, because they look at your collateral, they look at your cash flow, they'll also look at your character. And I think one of the things I also forget is that as much as you are a company with a good cash flow, the investors will also ask for the director's credit, be it the credit scoring. They look at have you defaulted on loans. So you as a founder, how is your credit scores? I think maybe I've answered on that. So number two, I can see a question from Jeconiah. Consumer financing, how are the prospects of PEGO in clean cooking? We have seen much success in solar home system, but less in clean cooking. I think my take on this would be that there have been quite a number of pilots so far I've seen on PEGO for LPG. So in terms of the overall success, as of now, I cannot say I have very much information on that, but I know a number of companies have been piloting. So if they are at past their scale or at this stage, I can't say I've seen much of that, but I know PEGO mostly, I've seen it mostly in LPG. Quite a number of companies are trialing that. Dan, thank you, George. That was quite informative. Rocio Diaz, is there data on any tendency or preference on the investors for some particular technology or business model? So yes, I would say there's a tendency for investors for particular technologies. Some investors are like, I think I shared, they'll be in the energy sector, but they'll only be looking at the grid electricity. Some of them will be looking at the off-grid. We have investors who are also looking at clean cooking, but also some investors, I think, who give clean cooking a wide berth. So investors are specific, and you have to know where do they tend to lean. I think those are the questions that were asked. Is there any more questions?
I think
There's one more with Vipul.
Vipul, let me see. Vipul, where is it? I don't have it.
You can check on the chat. On the chat, Vipul is on the chat.
Maybe you can read it for me. Maybe my chat is not updating.
Okay, I can read for you. Vipul is saying, if we are working with the institutions such as ICDC, and they have provided us with a timesheet, but it requires us to raise 25% of the total project, how can this be approached? Normally, ICDC does not fund land. Can we team up with PFAN to look for a solution to this issue?
Okay. So what I would not, maybe one of the questions I would ask on Vipul is that, so the project you are going to raise, does it include purchase of land? So I think as Patrick will elaborate more on how PFAN operates. Mostly we work with investors looking to invest in projects. And land may be part of the investment, the overall investment that may be required, but I think what I can say is that investment are also like specific to the particular investment in terms of how the assessment and also is done, and also in terms of the risk. So maybe you can elaborate. Are you looking to buy land as part of the project?
As we wait for that, I think Roshu also had added something to the question she previously asked, and she was asking on, just a minute, to add on to what she had said, and is it greater now, the investment from private funders or bankers compared to donor funds?
What I can say is that yes, the investment now from private funds is greater, because if you look at like the trajectory of clean cooking financing over the years, so initially, even most of the donors they adopted a grant funding approach. So they used mostly to fund through grant mechanism. But I think much has changed over the last 6 years, as even those donors have adopted an enterprise funding approach. So you have to prove sustainability of your project or of your business for you to achieve funding.
Okay, thank you. Vipul has added that land is part of the overall investment. Yes, land is part of the project.
Okay, so on that one, I'll say that Patrick will elaborate further on how PFAN operates. So, but I'll not say that in the projects that PFAN has handled, there was no aspect of land. I will not say that there was not, but we have to look at the project in totality, and also the kind of also, you know, we work also with quite a number of investors and also donors, and each investor also is sector specific. So if you're looking at an aspect of a biomass, I think people you're in biomass. If you're looking at an aspect of biomass, so there's what the investors will look for. But what I've seen is that in most instances, investors mostly will focus on the equipment, but I may be mistaken. Then also because at the end of the day, what is your skin in the game? Yeah.
We also have another question from Carol. She says, do investors extend product risk factors to the financing?
If maybe in my understanding of how the question, do investors extend product? Maybe you can read it again.
Do investors extend product risk factors to the financing?
I think let me just stop share. Then I don't know why my questions are not. One of the things is that most of the investments, or most of, even if you look at your normal bank financing, they usually have an insurance on the product that they offer, but it only covers some certain aspects of risks, not all aspects. Like you cannot say general default is an insurance risk, because that's a normal risk for a loan or debt financing. But maybe if I can mention one thing is that when you're looking at debt financing, we usually look at two aspects, two main components of financing. So we look at corporate financing or project financing. So in project financing, we look at where the security or the project is anchored based on the cash flow that it generates. So that one mostly happens, a case example, in electricity projects, where you have a PPA or a power purchase agreement that is guaranteed by KPLC. So that acts as a security for the project. But In terms of the clean cooking, I've not seen a lot of. I cannot say. I think I need to be pointed out if there's any project financing. Actually, in clean cooking, most of what we have is corporate financing, which tends now to is anchored either on the business or the assets of the business.
Thank you. We also had another one from Danson, and he was saying, can PFAN help link us to a financier for asset financing, particularly for my briquettes project, since my customer base has intense, which needs equipment upscale?
I think that one mostly when Patrick is now on his session, we'll answer that one. But for projects, I usually say it's on a project by project basis. So I cannot say we cannot do that, but we have, the project has to be evaluated as to in terms of its viability, obviously, and also all the other aspects that we look for when we are evaluating a project, be it technical viability, commercial viability. But one thing I think, as I mentioned, unfortunately, a lot of carbonized briquette, we would have a challenge financing carbonized briquette companies, because that aspect of is your feedstock sustainable? Because I know most of the producers, they usually use charcoal dust as a feedstock for the briquettes. So, but it doesn't mean that they are out there. There are no other lenders who can also finance the same.
Thank you, George. I think those are the questions I got on the chat.
Okay.
Maybe, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, David, and thank you, everybody. We don't have much time, but I just want to give a brief of how to apply to PFAN. One thing I must mention just quickly is that your projects, most of the questions that you are raising, those projects, if you put them into the project, if you register your company, we will be able to evaluate and tell you there's some of these questions that you are asking. So the first thing to do is to register your business, your project in our website. You go to our website, which is www.pfan-net.net, sorry. And when you go there, you find a field known as Climate Invest, Climate-Invest, where you will register your company, your business. It's a very short one page where we shall require you to give us your details of your company. Then you submit it online. After 2 or 3 days, you'll be able to have a response where now you'll be given your password for you now to submit more information about your project. So that's why we need now more information, like the question of that potential project developer was talking about the LAD. That information to be submitted. Then our coaches will evaluate them and give you a feedback. Then from there, if you qualify according to the criteria, we will appoint someone a coach for you to help you develop the proposal. All these things we'll be doing them online. I think Wilfred has put something on about the link that you need to log in. So, and we are always available for any more information. Because of the time, I'll ask David of CCAK to make some remarks. But I want to thank you so much for all of you for your contribution. And thank you so much. I expect more projects now in our pipeline on the application, the submission. There's a question at the end, how you got in the information about PFAN. Please indicate that you were able to get it through our local coordinator in Kenya. Thank you so much. David, you can take over.
Okay, thank you, Patrick and George, Wilfred, and everybody who's really worked so hard to get this going. Apologies, I couldn't join at the beginning. I had some challenges with technology, but here we are. So I'd like to really appreciate PFAN for taking time to come explain to stakeholders in the clean cooking sector about how they can benefit from the advisory services which are offered for free by PFAN and linkages to investors and that. I think they've taken us through a very good and elaborate brief on what investors are looking for, what kind of financing is available, and how we can plug into it. Patrick has indicated how you can access their services. Basically, just go to their website. There's a portal where you can apply and get yourself supported by PFAN. I think there are quite a number of questions around how they can be supported and what kind of financing is available. So I think once you make your application, all those clarifications will be made to you. So in case of any clarifications, just reach out to PFAN, reach out to us at CCAK. There's an email that has been indicated there that you can write to, and we will forward it to PFAN, or you can directly write to PFAN. I think that is very much in order. As CCAK, the Clean Cooking as Kenya, for those who are not members, we bring together all stakeholders and make sure your issues are addressed, whether it's advocacy. We also organize events like this or webinars like this to get our members, exposed to different ways of financing their businesses, networking, trying to create awareness to increase the adoption of clean cooking in the country. So feel free, for those who are not yet members, to reach out to us. There are a lot of services and benefits for being members, and definitely to enhance our advocacy, we need as many stakeholders as possible to join the lobby group and be part of this beautiful family. So mine is to appreciate PFAN for now. Thank you so much for the presentation, for George taking your time to take us through all that. And Patrick, who've been organizing this. We have a session next week on carbon financing. So please join us again next week to continue on this discussion, and we'll be organizing more of these informative webinars to enlighten us on what is out there and available to take advantage. I'd like to appreciate everyone for participating in this. Asanteni sana for taking time, and we really appreciate it. In case you have any questions, and we'll support you. Asante sana.